When I told people that I got a truck, they thought I got a pickup truck. No, this is a real truck. You're watching Old Crows Classic Cars on Unboxed TV. This is the first truck this size that I'm working on. But it's an older truck. It's the same. It's pretty much the same as working on a car. It's just basically a big car. So it's actually a 1986 International. The model number is S1900. They had the S1600, 1700, 1800, 900. So it's basically the 1900 series, or the S series. There's a bunch of other variations. You can get some with the V8 engine. This one, like I said, just has a DT 466. It's a good balance between economy and power. This is a DT 466. It's a diesel engine, supposedly one of the best engines ever built. It's got what's called wet sleeves on the cylinders. So these engines are known to go over 1 million miles, and you don't ever have to do any machining work on the engine in the event that you do start getting a bit of some engine wear. I actually got it further south, about 2 hours drive from here, near London, Ontario. Rated for 2.8 tons, but overall, so there's actually 6 tires on the whole truck. But overall, I've heard it's rated for about 15 tons. So when I told people that I got a truck, they thought I got a pickup truck. No, this is a real truck. Overall, there's just a lot of rust around the rims. On all the rims, there was very, very heavy rust on them, and so the first thing that I did was to take them off and get them cleaned and then repainted. Originally used to look like this, just flaking off with rust. And then now they look like that. They're very, very big tires for somebody that's used to working on cars. One of the reasons I got the truck was because the tires are all pretty much brand new. So fortunately they're regroovable. So for cars, usually people just replace tires. But with the truck here, you can actually just replace the grooves on it. But fortunately, all the tires are pretty much brand new, so it was pretty rough. It was drivable, so I actually drove it back. The problem I had with it originally was the alternator. There was a bad alternator on it, so I kept having to recharge the battery if I let it die. The nice thing about the diesel is the diesel engine does not need a battery to keep running, so as long as it's running, it'll keep running unless you let it die. You put it in wrong gear and then you let it die, and then it will not start again if the alternator is not working. And the second thing that I did was just I just rechecked all the oil levels in the differential and the transmission, re-greased the joints. It's greasable joints on the springs, the drive shaft, but the worst part, what was really bad about it, was the cab. The whole floor was just rotted out, and as well as the exhaust. And again, I don't like to see the rust, and I like to get something solid, so that was kind of the main job. Mechanically, everything is fine. So the two main things, it's the exhaust and the cab. Otherwise, everything is pretty much good to go. Oils and all that have been checked, refilled. They refilled it with gear oil, and I would like to get it repainted, but that's not a priority. Not something absolutely necessary. But the exhaust and the cab floors, that's what we need for sure. Well, just the price of the truck and the towing capacity and the reliability. Again, I did a lot of research on this truck. It's a very common truck. It's a very well-known truck. So it's just a really good truck overall. It's known for reliability, and again, it's a 1986, and you can just drive it. I think that's pretty amazing. So I actually bought this truck with a friend of mine, and the plan is, first of all, the plan is to use it at my new land. Got a bunch of the stuff that I have to move to my land, so I've got my big compressor there, tables, tools, tires, a whole bunch of garbage too. Then over here, this is the pipe. This is the pipe for the air intake. So the engine is, it's constantly breathing in, it's sucking in air. And this is the pipe here. And then you've got this little switch here, this little valve. Originally there would have been an ether can that would be connected to this here, and that would help the engine start on a really cold weather. Right now it's just connected to nothing, and it's just acting as a plug. And over here you've got the coolant pump, and it just pumps the coolant, or circulates the coolant around the engine and into other parts, such as the heater core. I'll probably have to fix this here. It looks like somebody just used zip ties to block off the end of this line here, this pipe. And there's that's the missing exhaust nut right there. In the future, I would like to replace these pipes. They have some surface rust on them, but I'll get that done someday. And I've already replaced this bolt right here. This is a brushless alternator, so there's no brushes in it. There's no rubbing of brushes which wear out, so it's supposed to last a lot longer than a regular alternator. Wait a bit, yeah. Over on this side we've got the turbo, and I actually had to disassemble the whole thing because I broke most of the bolts inside it here. Now they're all replaced. They're all stainless, so they won't break off again. I also put the anti-seize on it again. That will just make sure that these never break off again. Also had to re-thread these little plugs here on the exhaust. You need to have good exhaust pressure in these diesel engines. You can't have a leak. There's a movie, I think it's Viva Las Vegas, where Elvis was a mechanic, and he was working under a car, and then this pretty girl shows up, and she says to him, the starter motor is whistling. And then he looks at her and he says, I don't blame it. So I also had the whole exhaust manifold out. The cool thing about this here is that it's a 3-piece exhaust manifold, so there's a middle piece and it actually connects to these other pieces here, which I think is pretty cool. Makes installing it really easy. I got most of the bolts out and put a bunch of anti-seize on it. Again, these things, over time, if they're just regular steel, they rust, and then you could actually break one off inside the engine, and that's really a pain in the ass. And I had to get them out so I could get the turbo out. Or actually no, I just got it out because I hate the rust. But it's all reconnected here again. Sometimes you got some surface rust here, and that's something that I will fix in the future, but it's going right now, and not major rust. So it's kind of at the end of the list of priorities. And you've got a few filters down there, and a big cooler here for the Coolant goes in through here, and you actually have also a coolant filter down there. So these are the two engine oil filters. So there's one here and there's another one there. So over here we've got the new cab mount. So this here is the cab, and you've got the frame right here, and they're separate parts. So we have this cab mount, so it's got a piece of rubber right there, and that just reduces the vibration from the road, so it keeps things more comfortable for the driver. So originally it was a bit different. So right now I just have a big thick piece of 1/4" angle with the hole on it. It's a lot simpler than a piece of rubber there and another piece there, and there's actually going to be another piece at the bottom there. And then over here you've got this like pipe. It's actually called a channel, and it makes the whole cab stronger. It reinforces. Otherwise, if you just had sheet, which is thin, then the whole thing would be wobbly. Piece of channel right here, spot welded, and a big piece going across up here. From here all the way there. And again, that's just going to keep the whole cab very, very sturdy. So right here we've got the big fuel tank. We've got one on each side. Fortunately, it's all nice and clean, no rust. And I really like to get one of these in the car, actually, because they're so sturdy, they're so strong. Like the sheet for it is just much thicker than a regular car fuel tank. And you can easily check the fuel level by just opening the cap, and you can look inside, or you can actually have a dipstick going in, and then you look at the level of fuel. It's a nice brass piece, by the way. Yeah, the whole thing is just nice and sturdy. So if you actually hit it with a hammer, you can tell just by the sound that the sheet on it's much thicker than a regular fuel tank. So I did quite a bit of work on this side of the tire. So I actually got everything disassembled on this front axle, on this side of the front axle. So it all started with this plug here. When I got the truck, this plug was missing, and they actually had a bit of tape on it. And basically there's this glass piece here, and there's the glass there, and there's actually oil inside here. And that oil, like the tires are spinning at thousands of times per minute, and you have that oil to lubricate and prevent and stop seizing and wearing out of the bearing. But fortunately there was still a lot of oil in. There's a little bit of water, but I disassembled this, I took it off, but fortunately the bearing was okay. But then one thing led to another. I took the whole wheel off to get it nice and painted the way it is now. I've got, as you can see, I've got all stainless bolts going around, stainless nuts throughout. Again, just so with stainless you don't have any rust. So I got the whole thing out, and then I saw that there was rust bolts inside the brakes and the drums, and I started getting those out. So a little job kind of turned into a big job, and I kind of controlled myself from doing that on the other side for now. But the brake pads are fine. I inspected the brake pads, so it's all new bolts. Everything's nice and clean and painted, even inside the drums on this side, on this front axle here. So over here we actually have a few belts. There's actually 2 belts on the alternator here, so it's a two pulley system, 2 belt, 2 groove pulley here. And the reason there's 2 belts is just to ensure there's no slippage. And there's also 2 belts going to the main pulley there on the engine over here. So it's a crankshaft pulley, And the crankshaft pulley is connected to this big pulley here, which is kind of connected to the fan here. So on the older cars like the Rambler, the pulley is connected directly to the fan, so that if the engine is spinning, the fan is spinning. Over on the truck here, when I first when I first started working with cars, I originally thought that a fan like this would have been broken. But what's inside here is actually a thermocoupler. So basically what happens is when the engine is hot, then it expands this, there's like a spring, and then it moves the fan with it. The reason being is it just helps the engine get warmer faster. Thermostat, basically, it's activated by temperature. And again, you've got two pulleys just to prevent slippage. So I welded this piece of angle, so this part here, and then there's a hole right there. And a bunch of diesel inside here. This is actually the air storage tank. So this truck has air brakes, and so the compressor at the engine compresses air into this cylinder here. And then every time you press the brakes, it uses up a little bit of the air until the compressor fills it up again. So I've just added a few valves that were replaced a few valves that were bad. So this is a nice brass one. So this is basically a water filter. So when the air is compressed, it also compresses the moisture in the air, which becomes liquid. So this thing it just fills up with water, and then once it gets a certain amount of water, it opens up by itself and it expels the water. I replaced a few bolts on it too. So this here is the driver's seat, and the cool thing about it is that it's actually got air suspension, air adjustment, so you can adjust the height. I can adjust the height that I want to. You just move a button, a lever, and you can increase the height or lower the height. But the air suspension also makes it very, very comfortable. So any vibration from the road that goes through the mounts to the cab is pretty much eliminated, because you've actually got a layer of air cushioning it. Got these convenient little shelves, which I think is pretty cool. So I've got all my tools, pipes, and a bunch of stuff on it. So over here is the main area of work. I've been working on it for probably over a month now, and just redoing the whole floor of the cab, as well as the front side of the cab. So it's probably redoing like 60% of the whole cab. So there's pretty much no cab, just a bunch of rust when I got it. So everything here, as you can see, it's almost like a Flintstones car right now. It's just big holes, but we redid the whole structure for it. And obviously, knowing me, it's a very super duty structure. And then after, we have the just sheets that are going to be bolted on. So originally it was a bolt-on floor, so you could actually remove parts of the floor in order to get access to the transmission or to the engine or to the pipes that run across the frame, and that's going to stay that way. So it's pretty convenient, and you don't have to do any welding, and I really like that idea of having the floor removable. After all this is done, then I'm going to have the paint, and underneath we're going to have that rubberized asphalt. Actually, might not, might just be painted. This here is just a temporary floor just so I can work on. So I already did the whole dog house, this part here. Just welded all the new sheets, and so all these big square pipes, I welded all that. And then throughout the cab there's a lot of holes throughout, a lot of garbage on the dash, thousands of wires everywhere. Actually had to make new mounts for it too here in the back. Then there's new mounts on the front as well, and I've changed that as well. It seems like it's a small cab, but it's a lot of work, a lot of welding.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And over here I'm going to have one of these angles, and that's going to weld onto the back like that. Mechanically, everything is fine. It hurts me to see him treat you the way that he does. It hurts me to see you sit and cry. And when I know I could be so true if I had someone like you, it hurts me to see the way he makes you cry. Thank you very much. Thank you.